The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, would you please call the roll?
Senators Bridges, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Benberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg,
Excused.
Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend Senate Rule 1B to allow a person other than a senator to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and we will suspend Senate Rule 1B. Members, today is Intellectual and Development Disabilities Day, and on this day we are privileged to have Steve Tiemann here with us today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Morning, Steve. How are you? If you want to just face the flag and lead us in the pledge.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the Journal. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Tuesday, February 26, 2019 be dispensed with and the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Committee reports.
February 26, 2019, Committee on Local Government. African Service American Committee is following. House Bill 1047, refer to Committee on Whole Federal recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 26, 2019, Committee on Local Government. African Service American Committee is following. House Bill 1175, refer to Committee on Whole Federal recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 26, 2019, Committee on Local Government. African Service American Committee is following. House Bill 1084, refer to Committee on Whole Federal recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 26, 2019, Committee on Finance. African Service American Committee is following. Senate Bill 140 be postponed indefinitely. February 26, 2019, Committee on Finance. After consideration of American Committee is following. Senate Bill 65 be amended as follows. As submitted by Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. February 26, 2019, Committee on Finance. After consideration of American Committee is following. Senate Bill 2 be amended as follows. As submitted by Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. February 26, 2019, Committee on Transportation and Energy. After consideration of American Committee is following. Senate Bill 101 be postponed indefinitely. February 26, 2019, the Committee on Transportation and Energy has consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments be confirmed. A member of the Air Quality Control Commission for a term expiring January 31st, 2020. Alden Schindler, Basalt, Colorado, to serve as person with appropriate scientific and technical experience and occasioned by the resignation of Megan Elise Garvey of Denver, Colorado, appointed. February 26, 2019, the Committee on Transportation and Energy has had in consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments to be confirmed. Members of the Air Quality Control Commission for terms expiring January 31st, 2022. Jana Beth Milford of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as person with appropriate scientific and legal experience, reappointed. Elise Sarah Jones of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as person with appropriate technical and private sector experience occasioned by the resignation of William R. Tour, Boulder, Colorado, appointed.
Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 97. Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 90. Correctly revised, House Bill 1044, 1059, and 1100. House Joint Resolution 1011. Correctly re-revised, House Bill 1066, 1070, 1077, 1109, 1136. Correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 2470, 80, 82, and 83.
Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 167 by Senator Danielson, Representative Axelman Duran, concerning the creation of Colorado Professional Firefighters License Plate.
Finance.
Senate Bill 168 by Senators Lee and Gardner and Representative Weissman and Herod, concerning implementation of recommendations of the Committee on Legal Services in connection with legislative review of rules of state agencies.
Legal Services.
House Bill 1031 by Representative Gray and Senator Gonzalez, concerning allowing each parental guardian to serve as a minor medical marijuana patient's primary caregiver and in connection therewith make an appropriation.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1038 by Representatives Duran and Lontier and Senators Journal and Story, concerning dental services for pregnant women covered under the Children's Basic Health Plan and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Health and Human Services. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read all the titles to the bills on the consent calendar.
Senate Bill 97 by Senator Story and Corman, Representative McCluskey and Soper, concerning a grant program for area technical colleges. House Bill 1059 by Representative Martin, Senator Tate, concerning removing redundant language in the educating licensing statute regarding requirements for out-of-state applicants. House Bill 1100 by Representative Geithner and Senators Bridges and Lundin, concerning prohibiting a school district board of education from including a use restriction on certain transactions involving the school district's property that would restrict the property from being used as a school for any grade from preschool through the 12th grade.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 97, House Bill 1059, and House Bill 1100.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of all the bills on the third reading bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading consent calendar? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 097 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Moreno, Heisey, Zenzinger, Bridges, Lee, Danielson, Winter, Rodriguez, Crowder, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Woodward, Priola, Rankin, Todd, Court, Williams, Pedersen, Lundin, Tate. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1059 is passed. Co-sponsors: with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1100 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Cook, Gardner, Heisey, Priola, Coram, Woodward, Moreno, Tate, Scott, Court, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1044.
House Bill 1044 by Representatives Kraft, Thorpe, and Landgraf, Senators Todd and Quorum, concerning advanced behavioral health orders determining the scope of treatment an adult wishes to receive under certain behavioral health circumstances.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. And my colleague from Montrose and I would like to move House Bill 1044. And we don't normally do this, but we need to request, Mr. President, a third reading amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Carpenter, the motion before the body is request to ask permission to offer a third reading amendment. Will you please explain the third reading amendment that you are offering?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I can blame it on that we had a fire drill yesterday. I can blame it on a lot of different things that, but it was really my negligence that I had made a commitment to one of our colleagues that we would offer this amendment and just overlooked it. And so with that, what this amendment does and what it says is that the behavioral health orders would have a 2-year revisiting period. And that was something that we had committed to doing after the committee meeting and committee hearing. And again, I would just ask for an aye vote on this amendment to rectify a goodwill that was stated yesterday.
The question before the body is the permission to be granted to Senator Todd and Senator Quorum to offer a third reading amendment. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Will the clerk please read Amendment L0113?
Amendment L013, House Bill 1044 by Senator Todd, amendment revised bill page 7 after line 19, insert 3. A behavioral health orders form is effective for 2 years following the date that the adult signed the behavioral health orders form unless the adult executes a new behavioral health orders form or amends or revokes the behavioral health orders form.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I move House Bill 1044 as amended. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on amendment? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Myself, as well as the senator from Colorado, heard this in committee, and we were a no vote. But with the amendment, I think if it's passed, I will be a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Quorum, since you're on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I
Senator
actually
Quorum,
thought
would
the
you
good
mind-
senator was from Kansas, so I'm a little confused. I thought both of them were from Kansas. Thank you, and I renew our call for passage. Move the bill, the amendment as requested. Just vote yes.
Having no further discussion, I believe the request is to move Amendment L013. Having no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L013. Are there any no votes?
Do it.
With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, Amendment L013 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1044 as amended, and just to note that the senator and I will be great companions at the nursing home. We are already prepared. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1044. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, House Bill 1044 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Court, Janal, Moreno, Bridges, Crowder, Gardner, Fields, Rodriguez, Danielson, Williams, Tate, Pedersen, Lee, Story, Winter, Priola, Gonzalez. Please add the president. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bill.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading bills. And Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed. Ready? Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 88?
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper concerning the adoption of the revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 88 and the report of the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, otherwise known as BLT.
To the report.
Thank you. Members, just a brief remark about the bill and the report. This is the revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act, fondly known to some as RUPA. The committee made several changes and refinements to what is a 105-page bill. I will save the reading at length of the bill till tomorrow on third reading, if we are able to get to third reading. The changes in the committee report were of a technical nature, but I don't want to minimize the fact that they were important changes to account for holders of unclaimed property, insurance companies, banks, and so forth, as well as exempting local governments from the provisions of holding unclaimed property. It turns out that your county and city governments hold a fair amount of unclaimed property, but we're not going to put them into the state unclaimed property system. But you might want to check and see how much money your local governments are holding that belong to citizens and see what they're doing to reunite citizens with that. As you know, this is the program that you often see commercials about. Maybe you have money held by the treasurer, and the treasurer's office makes great efforts to restore people with their property. So with that, I renew my motion on the committee report, and I do have some amendments to the report at that point.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L014?
Amendment L014, Senate Bill 88 by Senator
Senator
Gardner.
Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L014. Members, so just to get your arms around unclaimed property and the uniform law in terms of its complexity, this is really about a 5-year effort in total to, first of all, have the Uniform Law Commission do the draft, and then this bill has been with the Colorado Uniform Law Commission for a couple of years already. Again, working with stakeholders to refine issues with respect to how we do unclaimed property in Colorado, which I have to say, Colorado is very committed to connecting citizens with their unclaimed property. Some states, I think, are not nearly as good about it, and they hang on to the unclaimed property and use those funds for state purposes. There is a bit of that in Colorado, and it continues to be the case. But again, our elected treasurers of both parties have had very active programs to encourage citizens to go online and see if there is unclaimed property. Now, Amendment L014 amends both the committee report and the printed bill. And what it deals with is contingent fees of auditors who go out to banks and insurance companies nationally to find unclaimed property of Colorado citizens. This might be a bank account, a securities account, a life insurance policy that, for example, one's long-lost uncle may have been deceased and had a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 or even a multi-million-dollar policy, but there are an awful lot of these $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000 or $5,000 policies sitting there that no one in the family knew existed. What the treasurer does is audit these entities, and within the state of Colorado, they do the audit themselves. Nationally and outside the state, they hire audit companies to do it, and they do so on a contingent fee. As you know, with contingent fees from the legal business, they could be extraordinary on a per hour basis and a percentage basis. What the amendment does, L014, is limit those contingent fees to 12%, and also puts another limit on them that they, in the most extreme cases, would not exceed $500 an hour, which is very, very high. But I can walk you through scenarios where 12% might be hundreds of thousands of dollars for just a few hours of work. So we want to pull that back. So with that and that rather complex explanation, members, I would ask for your approval of L014.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Senator Crowder.
Stay here. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question on this. If we're going to limit this at 12%, and let's say that auditor, is he just going to be after the larger amounts instead of what I'm concerned about is, let's say somebody, which I think there are quite a few there, are just under $100. Would they even mess with those?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. So I appreciate the senator from the free community of Alamosa. The free and independent community of Alamosa, perhaps a home rule city in Colorado. Seriously, with respect to these audits and the contingent fees, so what the Treasurer's Office does is enter into a contract. In other words, not everybody can just go and try to find it. It's not a free-for-all, but rather they enter into contracts with national companies. They tell us that the contingencies for these contracts are anywhere from about 10.75% to 12%. And the auditors go into, again, to banks, insurance companies, and they look for all of it. They scrub the whole entire thing. So they may find $1 million policies, and they may find the $5,000 burial policy, and with banks, they may find the $100 account, and they may find the $3,000 account. Usually, people leave small amounts in. So that's the way it operates, Senator.
Okay, well,
Senator Crowder.
With that said, then what you're talking about, they will go in and audit all of the accounts, and it would be 10 or 12% of the total, correct? And you can go ahead and laugh at my question, but I didn't know what the answer was.
Oh, no.
No, I'm not talking about you, but there are smirks in the audience. And, I think this is kind of a serious issue because I've had several people tell me that they have tried to reclaim their property, and it's just not worth the nightmare. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that this is an easy situation to get done. And I think that, in your opinion, do you see this as a way to streamline this effect even more?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the question from the senator from Alamosa. The revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act, this bill, is a revision of the Uniform Unclaimed Property Act, which Colorado adopted in 1982. One of the things that the Uniform Law Commission determined when they decided to do a revision was technology-wise, it had become kind of cumbersome the way we do the system. So the revision is to bring it up into the 21st century, deal with all sorts of things. I mean, one of the issues we had was dealing with gift cards. We already do deal with gift cards, but just the whole regime there has changed radically since 1982. So it is made to improve the system and make it more streamlined.
Senator Crowder.
Well, with that said, then I will be supporting this bill.
Is there any other discussion to Amendment L014? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L014. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? And the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L015?
Amendment L015, Assembly 88 by Senator Gardner.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L015.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, one of the favorite phrases here in the General Assembly, of which there are many, but one of them is, we need to do things the Colorado way. Well, it turns out, even with respect to uniform laws, there are things in them that pose a difficulty for Colorado, and I assume that that is the case for the uniform laws when they go to Texas, California, New York, and so forth. One of the issues we have in Colorado is that it is unconstitutional under Article 11, Section 1 of the state constitution to statutorily indemnify any private entity. Now, how does that come into play in uniform unclaimed property? Well, there are some provisions there that would, in the uniform bill, that would require the indemnification for breaches of information of a holder, that is, insurance company, bank, and so forth, when they turn the information over to the treasurer, and if the treasurer somehow compromised that information, there's an indemnity provision. We just constitutionally cannot do it. So this removes that, but it does put in and replace in the bill provisions requiring security of information as between holders, again, banks, insurance companies, gift card companies for that matter, and the state treasurer's office. And so this is highly technical, but it deals with what is a constitutional issue in Colorado, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? So the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L015. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Gardner.
Thank you. So, colleagues, I appreciate your rapt attention to the question and issue of unclaimed property in Colorado. And I will spare you further details about it, but the next time you see one of those ads on TV from your treasurer, as I assume former Representative Young will have those ads as well, know that you had a small part to play in reuniting the citizens of Colorado with property that is held in accounts and places around the country. And you know, occasionally somebody finds, well, often people find $10 and $15 and $25, but once in a while somebody finds $1 million that their long-lost aunt or uncle had. So with that, check the unclaimed property register on the Treasurer's website and vote aye on Senate Bill 88.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 88? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 88. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report. Yesterday, out of the blue.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration, one in particular. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will place the reports out in consideration of the following task bills being seconded thereof, makes the following recommendations are on such lady as amended past second read order and gross place and counter for their reading and final passage.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Motion is for the adoption of the committee whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 088 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 113?
Senate Bill 113 by Senator Moreno, Representative Zaskar, concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 113.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President, as much as it pained me to do that. Colleagues, the House merely added a small footnote that Denver Health would provide some additional funding to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing so they could receive federal matching funds and use those funds to then transfer folks out of a hospital setting and into a long-term care setting. I encourage your concurrence on Senate Bill 113.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the Senate is to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 113. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 113 as amended.
The motion before the body is the repassage of Senate Bill 113. Are there any no votes? Senators Marble, Lundeen, Woodward, Gardner, Heisey. With 29 ayes, 5 no votes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, Senate Bill 113 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 128?
Senate Bill 128 by Senators Moreno and Todd, Representatives Zaskar and McLaughlin, concerning adjustments to appropriations of 2018-19 fiscal year for state share of total program funding for school financing in connection therewith, making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move that the Senate reject House amendments to Senate Bill 128 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is that the Senate the Senate not concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 128 and that a conference committee be appointed. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the motion is adopted. The following senators will be appointed as members of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 128. Senators Moreno, Zenzinger, and Rankin. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 128 be permission to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses.
The motion before the body is to grant permission for the conference committees of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 128 to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 111?
Senate Bill 111 by Senator Moreno and Representative Escar concerning a supplemental appropriation of the Department of Corrections.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 111.
Is there any discussion? Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this one, concurring on this one, particularly gives me pain because the money that the House stripped out of this supplemental appropriation has largely already been spent, but you just hate to crush people's dreams. On this one, the department will have the opportunity to include the costs that were stripped out in their budget request for 2019-2020. So things will still be on track, but we want to make sure that a larger conversation is had between reform and additional capacity that may be needed in our prison system. I encourage your concurrence on Senate Bill 111.
Is there further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate the remarks of the senator from the Free State of Commerce City. It is likewise with the greatest reluctance that I concur, because I believe that what the House is doing and what they did with their amendment was kick the can down the road and not face this head on, because that money has already been spent, if I understand from the senator, and that's my impression as well. We need to deal with our crowding in the Department of Corrections. It's a matter of safety for corrections officers, inmates, and a matter of management. And it's ironically, as I stand here as a senator in the minority party, I find myself advocating for the administration of a different party to have the ability, against its own party in the General Assembly, to have the ability to manage the corrections population and to do so in a rational fashion. So I will vote yes on the concurrence, but I want to make clear that we are just failing, in my mind, to do what we should do and do today. Thank you.
Further discussion? Senator Rankin.
Well, I just wanted to ask for concurrence and make a couple of comments. This can has been kicked so many times, it's one big dent. So, what we were particularly concerned about is emergency capacity. We're told that 2% vacancy rate in men's prisons is the danger point. And we do not want to set the department up for failure, because failure would be a dramatic event if there were major violence or riot in these prisons. So what our 1331 said was that they would be ready in an emergency situation to house people in CSP2. Well, since the money has largely been spent, we're assured that that emergency capacity will exist late March. And so this is sort of a strange compromise position, but it will work. And since this seems to be the will of the legislature to continue to put caps on our prison capacity while we resolve the problem of parole and community corrections and all those other things, this does seem to be a reasonable approach. So I ask for your concurrence.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've already heard about some of the issues I have with this, but the fact the money's already been spent and now we're pulling it back means they have to take that money from somewhere. It will come from the same place it always does, facilities. They call it deferred maintenance. That's a polite term for neglect. I've got a list here. Central boiler plant. That's on the hold position now. Card reader system, fire alarm repair. There are just many things that have to be dealt with in a facility this large, and they need to be dealt with on a timely basis so that we're not looking at a total failure where it really becomes expensive. I know how the vote's going to go. I assume I know how the vote's going to go. I will vote yes on this because I have been assured by more knowledgeable colleagues that this is what needs to be done, but I do have a problem with this.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I understand and share many of the concerns expressed by my friend and the senator from Fountain. Keep in mind, colleagues, that all of this money was intended to provide the General Assembly options for additional capacity. And most of the money that's already been spent has been to prepare CSB2 in the event that we need to utilize it for that additional capacity. Also keep in mind that statute needs to change before any prisoners can actually be housed there. There is currently a statutory prohibition on us housing any inmates at CSB2. So I look forward to the bigger conversation we will have in this legislative session around reform, around capacity, because we need to make sure that our correctional officers are safe and our inmates are safe in Colorado.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 111. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 111 as amended.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 111. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Woodward, Hill. With a vote of 31 ayes, 3 no votes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, Senate Bill 111 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senators Crowder, assigning of bills.
The President signed House Bill 1050 and 1104.
Announcements. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Members, it is our great pleasure today, my colleague from Carbondale and I would like to be able to present a tribute today.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to read this tribute to the IDD community, intellectually and developmentally disabled folks in our midst. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities are defined by their strengths, abilities, and inherent value. With appropriate resources, services, and personalized supports, they make decisions about their own lives and contribute to their communities. Community living is a fundamental moral, civil, and constitutional right for people with IDD.
IDD advocates or advocacy organizations, clinicians, researchers, policy analysts, community-based service providers, case managers, and direct support professionals work in partnership with people with IDD, parents, families, the legislature, and state agencies to strengthen the service delivery system so people can live productive, healthy lives in the community. On the request of Senator Rachel Zenzinger,
Senator Bob Rankin.
Representative Bree Buentello, and Representative Hugh McKean, given this 27th day of February 2019, signed by President Leroy Garcia. Members, as the tribute pointed out, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are defined by their strengths. They're defined by their abilities and their inherent value, not by their disabilities. People with IDD, with those appropriate resources, the services, and personalized supports, can make decisions about their own lives and meaningfully contribute to communities just like people without disabilities. And people with IDD belong in the community and have fundamental moral, civil, and constitutional rights to be fully included and actively participate in all aspects of society.
So I would like to just share with you a little bit of why I'm standing here and how I came to this position. 6 years ago, I hardly knew about the IDD community. You know, true, we all have some neighbors and we know someone who's affected. But my journey started by learning about the community and meeting some of the individuals, and then participating in budget issues where we set priorities to take care of our most needy folks. So I would like to take this opportunity to urge all of us to become supporters and maybe even champions for the DD community. What does that mean? It means visiting regional centers where we used to have thousands of folks housed, and now we've moved them into community homes. So I would urge you to visit a community home, but more importantly, get to know one or two of these individuals on a personal basis. And let's start to define this community by what they can do rather than their disabilities, because that's what they want. You know, that's what they individually want. They want meaningful lives, they want work, they want involvement in the community, and they want friendships. So I would just urge all of us to take that journey that I've taken in the last 6 years.
I first became aware of this thing called the waiting list when I was taking a recertification class for my teaching license. And I had a friend in my community whose son has cerebral palsy, and she asked me if we were going to do anything to take care of that waiting list, and I had no idea what she was talking about. So today, what's really important is that we have approximately 3,000 people that are still on the waiting list for services with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And many people that have been on this list have been waiting for over a decade for access to comprehensive supports that they need. So today, as part of the IDD Awareness Day, the IDD community is highlighting the waiting list and the human impact that that has had on our state. Now, each of you have on your desk a flag and some information about that waiting list. And we encourage you to take a look at that information, and if you're attending the luncheon this afternoon, to look for the flag that is in front of the McNichols Civic Center building.
So thank you for supporting us in this tribute. The waiting list issue is one that we can actually work on and do something with. We've heard about this for a few years, but we really haven't attacked it. And the waiting list is a complicated issue because many of these folks are receiving other services. Some of them have been on the waiting list for many years. So this year we would like to tackle that list, find out exactly who these individuals are and what services they need to become productive members of the community. We also have an initiative this year, which we're all excited about, called Employment First. We're working with the Human Services Department and Labor and Employment. We're trying to actually focus on getting these people to meaningful lives. So let's all get behind those initiatives and support this community and these individuals. Thank you so much.
And you are all welcome today to join us for the luncheon. The luncheon will be from noon to 1:30. The speakers are going to start very shortly after it starts, so please hurry over as soon as you can. Definitely come before 1:30 so that you can hear the speeches and grab lunch. And again, the McNichols building is on the northwest corner of City Park at Colfax and Bannock. And thank you very much for your time and attention today.
Further announcements. Senator Priol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just a reminder about the Behavioral Health Caucus lunch today. We'll be speaking with parents about their experience as well as learning about texting resources for teens, what texting is teaching us about need and demand. Hope to see you there at noon.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, we wanted to share with you that a technology caucus will be occurring tomorrow, the 28th, from noon to 1:15 in LSBB. And we're going to talk about the broadband networking principles and some underlying issues on the open internet. Thank you.
Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Finance Committee and anyone who has a bill up in finance tomorrow, the calendar does not reflect it today, it will tomorrow, that we will be meeting in LSBB upon adjournment tomorrow to hear Senate Bill 139 and Senate Bill 138. So if you are on the Finance Committee or have a bill in Finance Committee, we will be at LSBB tomorrow upon adjournment. Thank you.
Senator Janot.
Thank you, Mr. President, and may I take a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. I just wanted to welcome Front Range Community College. They're having their day at the Capitol here today, and they'll probably be dropping by to visit you. But I wanted to make sure that they were recognized because Front Range Community College is the largest community college in Colorado. So when they stop by your office to talk, please spend a little time with them. They're from the poli-sci class and other classes, but I just wanted to make that announcement. So welcome, Front Range Community College.
Senator Janal will be fined as she referenced that it is an announcement accordingly. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm kind of afraid, do I ask for personal privilege? I have an announcement. I think I'm good. I think I'm safe on this one. And that is tonight you have lots of choices of places to go. ARDA, which is the American Resort Development Association, is having their reception at the University Club. And also NCSL is having a reception at the Art Hotel. And it is also Cherry Creek Day at the Capitol. And so I think those are the three different things, and I don't think I need to ask for a moment of personal privilege, but I hope you all have a glorious day. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
A moment of personal privilege, sir.
Granted.
You know, I think I just come down to speak on that tribute that we heard. I think that that's one of the things that we should be very proud of as a body, how we have progressed with the IDD. It has been a long, hard struggle. You know, and when he started this several years ago, it was in shambles. So I really give a lot of credit to a lot of people. I know I've worked on the IDD resolutions as well as bills over the years, but it's something that makes us want to feel like we're doing something really good. And I think the IDD deal that has progressed through the years has really worked out well. You know, every one of us has IDD people in our districts, but I didn't get down here in time to comment on that, and I thought I'd take a moment on that and reassure you that those who have not lived that, it's been a very fruitful journey. So I think we ought to be, you know, somewhat patted on the back for what we've done, but we do have a ways to go. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I wish to make an introduction, and so I'll show that I do have my fine at the ready, although I checked the rules, and I believe that it is still within the rules to introduce a member of one's immediate family. This morning, my daughter and attorney associate, Laura Gardner, is with us. Laura is here in the Senate this morning. We are privileged in our law practice, and principally, Laura, as my associate, represents one of our community-centered boards for Fremont and Chaffee County, Starpoint, so we'll be attending the luncheon today.
The senator from El Paso County is in accordance with the rules. Senator Phillips.
Good morning, Mr. President and members. I'd like to remind everyone that's a member of the Health and Human Services Committee that we'll be meeting upon adjournment in 15 minutes, so that will be at 10:15, and we're meeting in LSBB. See you there.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess until 12 noon today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1400 today.